If your Salesforce data doesn't match across teams, it's not a data cleanup that you need. You need to fix your data governance.
See, the CRM actually doesn't need to own the meaning of the data. The business should define that.
Teams, who are trying to implement this, I can understand how overwhelming all of this can look like. What do you recommend? Where should they actually start?
They look at the entire CRM and try to fix everything. So they end up over-engineering things. That never sticks.
What that actually means in practice to lock in on a definition.
So usually speaking, if we ask different leaders what active customer means, marketing would say active customer is based on engagement. Finance will consider looking at the revenue. Sales would consider someone who is all were looking valid. But you see, they are all misaligned. CRM need to own enforcement. It does need to make sure that once the decisions are made, they are being followed in the system. Because without that, three things starts breaking down. Revenue reports becomes unreliable, your automation starts behaving inconsistently, and you start exposing your
Today, we're going to be walking through exactly how you can stabilize your system without slowing your teams down. Welcome back. So in our last video, Chintan and I spoke about why Salesforce lists start to feel unreliable as you grow and scale. And today, we're going to be talking about how you can fix this. And more importantly, how you can fix it without disrupting your existing ops setup. Chintan, tell me this. When organizations realize that they have this problem, where do they usually get stuck first?
ownership. That's almost always the first friction point. It's usually where things starts getting messy, because if you look at it closely, everyone is getting involved but no one is fully accountable. Sales feels like they own customer definition, marketing feels like they own the life cycle, RevOps is expected to keep the data clean and system running, and IT controls the access and structure. So everyone is working inside the system, but no one is really responsible for making sure that rules are being followed end to end. Basically, no one fully owns enforcement. And that's where things start slipping, because without enforcement, definitions becomes negotiable. And most of the CRM leaders feels this but hesitate to step in strongly. They don't want to sound like blocking teams or policing usages. So they stay in a coordinator role instead of an authority role. And that's where things will start moving south. See, the CRM actually doesn't need to own the meaning of the data. The business should define that. Sales, marketing, and finance, they decide what qualify means, what active means, and what actually each stage represents. But CRM need to own enforcement. It does need to make sure that once the decisions are made, they are being followed in the system. Because without that, three things starts breaking down. Your revenue reports are not reliable or becomes unreliable. Your automation starts behaving inconsistently, and you start exposing yourself to compliance risk. And those aren't small team level problems. These are the risk which is going to affect your overall revenue and performance of the brand.
I can see that. And, Chintan, I also want to talk about the fact that when we are looking at how ownership is that area where things usually start to break down, you've mentioned a couple of times that this is something that our prospects, our clients also struggle with a lot. So, for all those who are watching and in the same situation, right, can you please share like a framework or some sort of a working model that could help them structure this entire thing a lot more better?
See, Risha, if there are any heads of CRMs watching this video, my advice to all of them is never argue opinion, but practice framing risk. See, this will immediately change the tone of the conversation, because now it's not about who owns or provides a better definition. It is about whether the organization can stand behind its numbers. And talking about framework, yes, I would love to give a simpler model to our viewers which they can leverage into their organization. First, let the business define the definition and meanings. So what that looks like in practice is that sales, marketing, and finance should come together and decide what any term means and what it is actually used for. They need to align on things like what counted as MQL, what count as pipeline, what count as an active customer. Secondly, the CRM is responsible for enforcing those decisions, whether that's in reports, list, automations, exports, or activation. Everyone should use the same logic. There should not be any workarounds or side versions. Thirdly, you need to have a clear escalation path, because disagreements will happen whether we agree or not. So at that time, we need to have one person who is responsible for taking that clear and final call. Typically, that sits with RevOps leader or a GTM leader who can make that decisions quickly. See, Risha, there are always three decisions that have to be explicit. What the definition is, who can use it and where, what happens when someone needs an exception. It's only when we fix these issues that's where we can see Salesforce stabilizing. We need to make our systems decision driven, not interpretation driven.
I love that. And it is also quite insightful. One thing I do want to echo is that for teams, who are trying to implement this, I can understand how incredibly overwhelming all of this can look like when they are starting, right? So, in all such cases, what do you recommend? Where should they actually start?
Yes, so here is something I share with our clients, and it's also something we use internally. They look at the entire CRM and try to fix everything. So they end up over engineering things. They look at hundreds of fields and try to govern all of them. That never sticks. And my advice is to start with fields that drive the most downstream decisions. And these are the fields that drive. It could be list and segmentation, it could be automation and handoffs, it could be pipeline reporting and compliance. And in almost every organization, that shortlist looks like first, consent and opt-in fields. These are like non-negotiable. And if these aren't locked, you are carrying avoidable risk. And then focus on lead status, account status, context status, opportunity stage, campaign member status, lifecycle stage. And the reason this matters is because they feed everything. They drive behavior. For example, if lead status isn't aligned, there will be gaps in handoffs between marketing and sales. If the opportunity stage isn't aligned, pipeline numbers won't match. If the campaign member status isn't aligned, marketing performance becomes hard to trust. So when you log this properly, everything downstream starts stabilizing. List becomes more trustworthy, automation behaves more predictably, and leadership stops questioning the numbers during the reporting.
But can you tell me what that actually means in practice to lock in on a definition?
So usually speaking, if we ask different leaders what active customer means, you will hear different things from different people. Marketing would say active customer is based on engagement. It could be email, it could be SMS, it could be behavior on the website. Sales would consider someone who has recently purchased. Finance will consider looking at the revenue, right? See, all the answers for marketing and sales all were looking valid. But you see, they are all misaligned. Now in contrast, a locked definition looks like active customer means an account with a closed won opportunity in the last 365 days. This excludes trials, churn, and support only accounts. Allowed for reporting and lifecycle analysis, but not allowed for outbound marketing without consent validation. So you can see how this definition lives in one place. It has one owner. And if someone wants to change it, it requires deliberate decision, as opposed to someone just changing filters in your report or make the number look right. And once the definitions are locked, rest assured that all arguments stop. Not because people suddenly agree, but because the system stops allowing room for interpretation. And I want to share one simple exercise to all the people in the CRM who face this challenge. Ask yourself, can someone build a list that's technically correct and still end up breaking your rules? If the answer is yes, governance isn't enforced yet, and that's where the starting point is.
So then once these definitions are locked, how do you ensure that they're actually used correctly day to day?
See, once definitions are locked, the next layer is usage control and monitoring, meaning who can actually create lists and who can use them and where they are allowed to go. Not everyone should be building the list, and not everyone who builds a list should be activating it. I know that sounds a little restrictive, but think about a larger picture or the real cost here. It's too many hours spent on rework. When people don't trust list, they double check everything. They validate counts. They run it past through RevOps. Campaign gets held at the last minute, and that is what slows down everything. So in practice, I would recommend first, limit who can build and activate list. This should sit with defined roles like RevOps, CRM admins, and campaign owners. For high impact list, you can enforce a basic documentation trail, meaning who the list is for, why it exists, and where it is going to be used, and all that. And secondly, when it comes to activation, especially for things which are compliance sensitive, there has to be an approval step, at least until we are sure that rules are being followed by everyone. There will always be an exception and we can't control it. So I would recommend we need to proactively plan for it. So in my understanding, what we normally do is we suggest a time-bound review, something that gets logged within 24 to 48 hours. Because if there is no path for that, people will start to have their own workarounds. Also, lastly, escalation has to be clear. If something is unclear or blocked, who makes the final call? Who is there to provide a solution? Typically, this flows from CRM to RevOps lead up to GTM lead or revenue leader if needed. That way, we can prevent those endless back and forth which happens on Microsoft Teams or Slacks. And finally, we need to address duplicates intelligently. If your round duplicates are too aggressive, people will stop enforcing it. I recommend catching high confidence matches automatically, route the rest for review, and lastly, rules for duplicate should prioritize trust and not perfection.
So if someone watching ends up doing all of these things that you have mentioned, what actually changes for the organization?
So if you bring this together, you'll start seeing the impact pretty quickly, usually within first 3 to 6 months. First, you will see alignment. Sales, marketing, and finance, they pull the same list and the numbers match. So you don't invest or waste your time in terms of reviewing whether the numbers are right before the meeting. Second, you will have better conversation with the leadership. Now people won't talk about numbers because everyone is on the same page, they are aligned. Teams move towards taking the right decisions and faster decisions. They are thinking about what are we prioritizing as a group, as an organization, what needs our attention, and you are saving time in building harmony among the team. Third, you will notice smoother execution. Campaigns don't get held up at the last minute. Automations behaves the way it should be. It gives the result which the people are looking or the marketing teams are looking forward to. You are not constantly double checking things before they go live. Also, fourth benefit is that even at scale, you don't lose the flexibility. Teams can adjust for their motion or region, but those changes are visible and intentional rather than being hidden in the number for someone's report. So globally, your numbers roll up cleanly. Fifth benefit is around compliance. Imagine not having to scramble during audits. Imagine already knowing what or how your data is used, controlled, and defined. The benefit is that what used to take days now starts getting handled much faster. See, this is when Salesforce stops being a place where you store data and it starts becoming something where business can actually rely on.
Wow. I'm sure that all of those benefits will definitely motivate the teams who are watching. Thank you once again, Chintan, for sharing all of those insights with us. This was an amazing video. By the way, if you are watching this and some of this felt familiar, that is actually a good sign. It means that you've scaled your system and now it's just that the rules around the governance has to catch up with that system. So if you want a second set of eyes to look at your Salesforce setup, get in touch with our team. You're going to find the link to our Calendly in the description of this video. And if you found this video useful, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more CRM conversations like this. You can also drop any questions that you have in the comments below, and we would love to cover that in the future videos. We're going to see you in the next one.